Hey guys, welcome back to For I Have Sinned. My name is Jess,
And this is Lauren.
and we are back. And it's been a little while, but we're back and we're better than ever.
That's it. Been a minute.
Yeah. So if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to us, like our videos, comment if you'd like. Nothing nasty. No.
Yeah, be
um,
nice.
yeah, seriously, be nice.
Please.
um, so yeah, do that. And also Patreon. Check us out on Patreon for patreon.com/, for I have sinned pod, for all kinds of goodies. And today we are doing something a little bit different. So for those of you who've listened from the beginning, you know that I started the podcast and I did episode 1 and 2 alone, and then Lauren joined. So I do not like those episodes. I feel awkward as hell. I sound awkward as hell. I mean, I don't know if it translates that way. It translates that. Holy shit, I can't talk. I don't know if it translates that way, but I hear it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so today we're gonna redo episode 1, which is the Butcher of Rostov, Andrei Chikatilo, and he might be my most not feared. I think when I read about this case originally, like probably like a decade ago, I it just like
Like
rocked
affected
my
you?
yes, it like
Yeah.
just rocked my world, not in a good way. Like
Yeah.
not that's not the term, rocked my world. It would be turn my world upside down.
It fucked you all the way up.
It fucked me all the way up, all the way around, down,
Yeah.
in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so um I read about it and then I watched the A&E biography. I don't know, A&E did a series back in the day with, like, I think there's one about Madonna. Uh, there might be one about Richard Ramirez. I'm not too sure. But anyway, there's one on Andre Chikatilo and, oh, hey, Tyrion.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Um, yeah, so I watched that documentary and I don't know, it like kind of scarred me, but super fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
and
it's definitely one of those cases that like the more you look into it and learn about it, the more you're like, wow, this is extremely fucked up.
yeah, yeah. And there's so many elements to this case that make it all the more, terrifying
Yeah.
and ugh. Um and but we wanted to redo the first we're going to redo the first 2 episodes. So that we'll do Daniel LaPlante next time. Although this is going to be a two-parter. The first part will be a little bit kind of short, but um, you know, we thought it would be better if we could have a conversation about it instead of just me speaking solo because me no likey.
Yeah, and it's always harder to do something by yourself where you don't have that interaction with someone
Right,
and you're just talking to no one,
right.
basically. Yeah.
Plus, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So, all right, well, let's get started with the do-over of Andre Chikatilo.
All right.
All right, so Andre Chikatilo was born on October 16th, 1936, in the village of Yablachna. Remember, I always choose the cases,
Always
always.
from episode 1.
Always choose the hardest names, the hardest like places. So, I've heard these names quite a few times, but I still don't know if I can say them.
Yeah.
So let's see. Okay, so I'm pretty sure this is Yablokna, which is in the Sumy Oblast of the Ukrainian SSR, or was. Uh, at the time, uh, the Ukraine was experiencing famine caused by Joseph Stalin's forced collectivization of agriculture. Um, so he was born just into complete destitution, you know, and um, his parents were both collective farm laborers, and they all lived in a one-room hut. So
Oh
if
my
you can
gosh.
imagine, like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could almost, I guess you could compare it to like a studio apartment in the sense that it's one room,
Right.
but it's probably not like they probably didn't have a bathroom, you know.
Right. Yeah, it was
They
probably like a shack.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
little outhouse or something like that. But yeah, so and I mean it's a hut, so it's not in good shape. So anyway, they received no wages, but they did receive the right to cultivate a plot of land behind their hut. So yay, communism
Okay.
in Russia. So
Right.
so food was very scarce. Chikatilo later claimed to not have eaten bread until he was 12.
Wow.
Yeah. And his family ate grass and leaves to save off hunger. I mean, I guess at that point, you're just so hungry. I don't think taste matters like whatsoever, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's like when you hear about stuff like Dyatlov Pass where they ate
Yeah.
their shoes and then they ate people.
Yeah, each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's true. You just do what you have to do to survive,
Yeah, they're in full
which
on survival mode, which is
yeah,
horrifying.
yeah. And I can't imagine being in a situation like that, but I guess, something takes over and you just do what you have to do, you know?
Right, right. And your kids being in that situation as well, like a whole family. It's just hard to even imagine that.
I know. So, he was born into a real shitty situation. Um, when he was young, he was also told by his mother, Anna, that he had an older brother. It's either Stepan or Stepan. I'm guessing it's Stepan, uh, who was kidnapped at 4 years old and eaten by starving neighbors.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she told Andrei this, and I don't like calling them by their first names. She told Chikatilo this, and that was actually never established whether it was true or not. It was possibly told to him to keep him away from strangers because, I mean, there were people doing stuff like that.
Sure, so like a scare tactic,
Yeah. Like,
but also extremely fucked up.
well, it's funny because, and I feel like I might have talked about this on another episode, but my great grandma, my Nona, was terrified of everything. And when I was about 8 or 9 years old, she was over at my house, and I was like, no, no, let's go for a walk because me and my mom and my stepdad would take walks around the block all the time.
Mhm.
So I just was like, no, no, let's go for a walk. So we get maybe like three houses down, and she's like, we have to go back, we have to go back. And I'm like, this is all said in a thick Italian accent, which I'm not gonna do right now. But I why? What's wrong? And she's like, you can't be walking around the block. The other day I was outside my house and there was a girl walking and I saw a guy grab her and put her in his car and stab her. And I was like, oh my God, let's go back,
Yeah,
you know? And that absolutely traumatized me.
yeah,
I was terrified of being kidnapped from such a young age because of this story that my great grandma told me.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like the same type of thing. It could be with what he did or what his mom told him, but that's not the way to do it. you
Right,
know?
and at such a young age, you're so impressionable. I remember when I was a kid, my mom used to say, "Oh, the man's gonna get you," and
Yes.
not so much to me, but I think she would say it more to my younger sister. And I was being a little bit older, would be like, "What man?" But that is just such a weird cultural thing that it's like, there's something that you pick to scare your child into doing what you want them to do or don't want them to do.
Is your mom Italian?
They are actually Irish and German, but my dad's side
Okay.
is Italian.
Oh, okay.
So she
No,
might have gotten it from that side of the family. She might.
because I feel like that's such an Italian. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's not just, but
Yeah.
I just, I just remember being a kid and my whole family telling us things like more to scare us to not do things instead of just making us aware of what could happen if you're in a
Right.
bad situation,
Right.
which I think is the right way to go about things.
Right.
But hey, parenting
Yeah.
styles. Um, so yeah, so again, that this was never established. This was never verified. It's not even verified whether there really was an older brother. So
Okay.
this could have just been a story that his mother made up. Um, he remembers his childhood as being affected by poverty, ridicule, hunger, and war. And when the Soviet Union entered World War II, his father Roman was drafted into the Red Army. He was he ended up being taken prisoner after he was wounded in combat. Um, and then Chikatilo said between 1941 to 1944, he witnessed the horrors of the Nazi occupation of Ukraine. He saw bombings, fires, and shootings. He and his mother would hide in cellars and ditches. Um, they were actually, on one occasion, forced to watch their hut burn to the ground. Yeah. Um, Now, Chikatilo and his mother had to share a single bed while his father was gone. Um, I don't know if like I don't think they all shared a bed when the father was there, but I don't know. Somebody had to have had like a bed on the floor or something.
Sure.
So yeah, so he slept with his mother while his father was away, but he was a chronic bedwetter, and his mother beat him every time it happened. So now let's add abuse to the mix, to the
And
recipe for disaster.
bedwetting is part of the McDonald triad.
Yep. hmm
Wow.
So in 1943, his mom gave birth to a baby girl named Tatiana. Now, his father could not have been Tatiana's father because he was at war. So it was speculated that Tatiana was a product of rape, as many Ukrainian women were raped by German soldiers. And this rape was most likely committed in front of Chikatilo. At school, he was consistently targeted by bullies because of his weak stature and timid nature. His teachers, however, praised him for being an excellent student. He was super studious. He loved to read, very good at school. In his teen years, he became an enthusiastic communist. He became the appointed editor of the school newspaper and chairman of the Pupils Communist Party Committee. He constantly read communist literature and organized street marches, which is a weird thing for like a teenager to be into. I mean, I guess now in America anyway, it's a little bit different. I feel like a lot of younger people are into politics now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe just because of the past 4 years. But I mean, I guess it was the same sort of thing in Russia. Like communism was a huge thing at this time, so I guess kids were a part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it is kind of a regional thing, and I agree that America may have been um, not as prevalent, but you look at Germany and the Hitler Youth Program, like
True.
that and that's, in my opinion, a way of indoctrinating children into
Mm,
this, belief system, and get them started at a young age, and have it in the schools, and then
yeah.
th- you know um so I think that's probably strategic.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, think about it. There's also other countries where they have child soldiers shooting
Yeah.
guns, you know?
Yeah. Horrifying.
That's hard. Yeah, that is absolutely like, ugh. I
Yeah.
can't even think about that. I don't know. That is just so beyond disturbing. Um, so in 1954, Chikatilo graduated with excellent grades. But during puberty, Chikatilo started to suffer from chronic impotence, and this was a big turning point in his life. Um, this made him even more socially awkward. He was very shy in front of women, and at age 17, he jumped on his sister's 11-year-old friend and wrestled her, and as she struggled, he ejaculated. So, yeah,
How old was he?
that's
17?
he was 17, the little girl was
Okay.
11. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. And that is very foretelling of things to
Yeah.
come for him.
Yeah.
Like that's
That becomes a big
wow.
thing for him. So, after graduation, he applied for a scholarship at Moscow State University and he was rejected. He assumed this was because of his father, who had been branded a traitor for being taken prisoner at war. So he was now ridiculed because his father was taken prisoner while he was wounded. And I mean, that's fucking crazy. Like, you get wounded during war and you get taken prisoner because you're wounded and can't do anything,
Yeah.
and you're branded a traitor. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. And it's sad because they probably, I mean, you see it happen in TV shows and movies and whatever, where somebody is a prisoner, whether it's a prisoner of war or whatever, or they're held captive, and they think that once this person's released back to wherever they were from, oh well, what did you tell them? What information did they get out of you? So that could be why it might have been that sort of
That's
mentality
true.
where they probably assumed that they extracted some sort of information. And if you think about the paranoia and of the country at that time,
That's true. That's
yeah,
very true. I didn't
sad
think
but
about that.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so then in 1955, he actually had his first relationship with a local girl, and on 3 occasions they attempted intercourse, but each time Chikatilo was unable to sustain an erection, and she broke it off after about 18 months. So, I don't know, man, like, and not to sound, I don't know if, not, I'm not shallow, but not to sound like mean,
Yeah.
but if you don't have any type of sexual chemistry and you've tried a few times, I just don't see how that could work.
Yeah. Um and at such a young age, that's hard because of hormones and stuff. And
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
I guess more
that's
as an adult that would be a
yeah.
little bit more frustrating and for both
Yeah.
parties.
Yeah.
But I guess like when you're that young, you're kind of just you want to be in a relationship. You have those types of
Exactly.
feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah, so um in 1957 he was drafted into the Soviet Army until 1960, and then he joined the Communist Party officially shortly before his service ended. He returned to his native village and began a relationship with a young divorcee, which ended after 3 months because of several unsuccessful attempts at intercourse. She innocently asked her friends for advice about his impotence, and her friends opened their mouths, and he was ridiculed by his peers. So this was something else to make fun of him about and,
Yep.
to hold him back.
Yep.
So he said, girls were going behind my back whispering that I was impotent. I was so ashamed. I tried to hang myself. My mother and some young neighbors pulled me out of the noose. So that's really sad.
Yeah, it is.
And I was just listening to the Morbid podcast, and they always say, like, feel bad for the kid, don't feel bad for the killer. So,
Right, who they turn into.
right, right.
Yeah, yeah, and that happens often in these cases where you see such a traumatic childhood and so many horrible things happen to them that you do feel bad.
Yeah,
And when you're going through a story chronologically, the way that we do as well, you're focused on that early stage of their life, and you forget that they become such a piece of shit later on in life that it's easy to garner sympathy for that child that was teased, abused, terrified, poor, starving. So it's a conflicting emotion, really.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And guys, if you haven't listened to episode 1 and you don't know about Andrei Chikatilo, you're not going to feel that bad for him for much longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
because he's probably one of the all-time worst to that ever lived, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so after all of this, Chikatilo felt that he had to leave home, and he moved to Rostov-on-Don, and he rented a small apartment close to his new job as a communications engineer. His sister Tatiana finished school and moved in with him for 6 months before marrying a local and moving into her in-laws' home. At this point, she vowed to help her brother find a wife and start a family. In 1963, Chikatilo married Feodosia, this is a hard one, Feodosia Odnacheva, who was introduced to him by his sister Tatiana. His marital sex life was minimal, and due to his impotence, his wife would conceive by him ejaculating externally and pushing his semen inside her vagina with his fingers.
Wow.
Yeah, which I didn't even, but before I heard about this case and heard that detail, I didn't even know that you could do that.
DIY artificial insemination.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. I just feel like, you're not using any type of, you know, medical
Applicator.
applicator, and also, I don't know, when they do certain fertility treatments, the sperm is kept safe, and
Yeah.
I just feel, I don't know, I just find that fucking crazy.
It is pretty wild. Yeah.
Yeah, so it worked because in 1965 they had a daughter, Ludmila, and in 1969 a son named Yuri. So Chikatilo enrolled at Rostov University in 1964. He studied Russian literature and philology, which is the study of language in written historical sources. In 1970, he got his degree, and he began teaching Russian language and literature in Novoshakhtinsk. Wow, I'm very impressed with myself.
I am too.
Yeah, Novoshakhtinsk. So he was largely ineffective as a teacher. He was not able to maintain discipline, and he was regularly mocked by his students.
Again.
Again, yeah.
Yeah.
So this just like follows him
Yep.
throughout his life. In May of 1973, he committed his first known sexual assault on one of his students. I guess it was a field trip or something. It's not very clear, but they were swimming somewhere, and like his students and him, and I guess maybe other people who, I don't know. So he swam towards a 15-year-old girl, groped her breasts and genitals, and he ejaculated while she struggled to get away. So there's a pattern that's starting. He later assaulted another teenage girl whom he locked in his classroom. He was not disciplined for either of these incidents, nor for when fellow teachers saw him fondling himself in the presence of his students. So, I know back in the day, there's some things that people just didn't talk about, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But this is fucking like right in front of everybody,
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I think part of it has to do with that sort of brainwashed Russian mentality. Like, we have no problems. This
yeah,
is Soviet utopia, and we don't have any problems. And if we don't talk about it,
yeah,
then it's not a problem. Then it's not real.
right,
I think
right.
that,
And
and I think also of the time, it was just, sexual assaults weren't taken as seriously as they are
no,
now.
it was like taboo to speak about it,
Oh
and
yeah. And to even
but
acknowledge that it happened.
yeah, right. But yeah, like you said, there was definitely a state of denial going on in Russia, and we'll see that later on too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that comes into
But
play.
yeah. So Chikatilo also entered the girls' dormitory in hopes of seeing them naked. Finally, he was told to resign voluntarily or be fired. He chose the former, and he found another job teaching in 1974 with none of his offenses on his record. So it was just like, all right, just go somewhere else.
That kind of reminds me of what the Catholic Church did with the priests.
That's true.
You got caught raping a child in this church? Okay, well, we'll just not talk about that and send you somewhere else.
Yeah,
and
slip it under the rug and then just go there.
Yep.
Disgusting.
Yep.
So in 1978, he took another teaching position in Shakhty, which is a coal mining town north of Rostov on Don. And he stopped teaching in 1981 after complaints of child molestation against students of both sexes. At one point, because I guess the schools that he worked, I'm not sure if this was his first teaching job or his second, but it could have been this way in both. But it was almost like a boarding school type situation.
Okay.
Because there were dormitories, so the kids would sleep there. And they're in one of the schools, he actually snuck into the boys' dormitory and tried to give oral to a sleeping boy, or started to give oral to a sleeping boy. So just a fucking sick motherfucker.
Yeah.
So then he gets a job as a supply clerk. I said clerk for a factory in Rostov. This required him to travel extensively across much of the Soviet Union. In September of 1978, he moved his family to Shakhty, where he committed his first documented murder. On the evening of December 22nd, he lured 9-year-old Yelena Zakotnova. I'm doing so good with these names. I'm sorry, that was like terrible to interrupt myself there. Yelena Zakotnova to an old house which he had secretly purchased. He tried to rape her, but of course could not achieve an erection. And when Yelena struggled, he choked her and stabbed her 3 times in the abdomen, ejaculating while stabbing her. I should have set a trigger warning before this. We'll just throw it up in the description.
Okay.
He threw her body into the nearby Grushevka River, and 2 days later, her body was found. There were numerous pieces of evidence linking him to Yelena's murder. There were spots of blood were found in the snow just outside of his secret house. Neighbors remembered him being near and in the house on the evening of Yelena's murder. Her school backpack had been found on the opposite riverbank at the end of the street, indicating she had been thrown in the river at this location. And a witness gave police a detailed description of a man very closely resembling Chikatilo. The witness had seen him talking with Yelena at the bus stop where she had last been seen alive. So despite all of this, 25-year-old Alexander Kravchenko was arrested for the crime. He had previously served a prison sentence for the rape and murder of a teenage girl.
So he was kind of like lost the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. When Kravchenko's home was searched, spots of blood were found on his wife's sweater, and the blood type did match both Yelena and Kravchenko's wife. But I mean, that could just be a fucking crazy coincidence, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Not even that crazy. I mean, that people have the same blood type, you know?
Yep.
Well, no, but I mean, DNA testing had to be completely different back then, and especially in Russia, like they didn't have what we had
as extensive.
Yeah. So Kravchenko did have an alibi for the afternoon of December 22nd, 1978. He had been home with his wife and her friends the entire afternoon, and neighbors even verified this. So I know that this is short, this first episode, but I'm going to stop it here because I wanted to stop it at the first murder. There's a lot, and I think it all should be covered in one episode instead of like cutting it in half.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot, and it goes on for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it just goes on and on
Yeah.
for years.
Yeah. I think the amount of traveling that he does is a huge reason
Oh,
as
yeah.
to why. Kind of reminds me in a way of Samuel Little. So how he traveled across the whole country and just was able to kind of evade continuously, and even like well, no, Jack and Tavera got caught. Yeah, I mean, it just is reminiscent a bit of Samuel Little because it's so many rapes and murders and all over the place, and he's just relentless. It's really.
And there's no you know how a lot of killers have a certain type that they kill.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that. He kills women, children,
Yeah.
of either sex.
Yeah.
He just
it's more like
doesn't kill,
opportunistic.
right. He
Yeah.
just doesn't kill grown men.
Yeah.
And I mean, we'll get more into detail with that in part 2, but like I said, I did want to stop this after the first murder just because it's just going to get fucking crazy. Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for bearing with us on our little brief hiatus.
Yes.
We're gonna keep it up now.
Yeah.
You know.
Unlike Andrei Chikatilo.
That was so good. Oh my God. Perfect.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That was just like
Okay.
expert comedic timing. Like, please. That was awesome. But guys, like I said, if you're watching us on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Get us on Patreon.
Any interaction with our posts, just be nice. But any interaction with our posts will keep us in the algorithm and help us to kind of gain a little bit more traction. So
yeah. And we're not saying be nice because we're scared of you. We're saying be nice because we'll ream you a new asshole. So
yeah, it's for your own good, really.
It is. But anyway, you know what we always say: stay safe,
wash your hands,
and don't kill
your
family.
Or
and don't
family.
Yeah. And don't stab people and get off on it, and
don't. I mean,
don't
there's
be
just
basically
you could I mean, there's options now,
there are many options.
There's medications.
If only he had some if only he had some ED medication,
Yeah, things would have been a lot different for him, I think.
Yeah. And again, I don't mean to joke, but we have to have some light in the darkness.
Yes, absolutely. They say that on last podcast on the left.
Oh, that's true. That's probably where I got it.
No, it's and it's true. It really is. It's such heavy material that if you don't sort of find something to joke about, even if it is dark humor, it's all very one note, and it's very sad, and
and just know we're not joking about victims. We're joking about sick fucks. So because people get offended, but I mean, I get it. Whatever, people get offended by different things, but this is what we do. So this is how we deal.
We're making fun of the pieces of shit that deserve it.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you or talk to you very soon.
Bye, Seniors.